The Red Raiders are looking to get back into the win column after 2 dreadful weeks. With Behren Morton back as QB1, can the Red Raider offense get back on track against the Horned Frogs? It'll be no easy task under the lights of Jones AT&T on Thursday night. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long. And better yet, Texas Tech men's basketball too, as tip-off is just around the corner for year number 1 of Grant McCasland. Join the most engaging and interactive Texas Tech community here on YouTube by simply liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now, in today's video, we will preview Texas Tech versus TCU. Texas Tech desperately needs to get back on track, and they're going to have to go on a little bit of a run like they did last year if they're going to want to make a bowl game in year 2 of Joey McGuire. But before we get into the preview, I want to hear from you guys, just your instant gut reaction. Who you got? Leave your score prediction on the pinned comment down below for TCU at Texas Tech under the lights of Jones AT&T Stadium on Thursday night. And I mentioned it's on Thursday night at the Jones. Listen, this is going to be a lot of fun. You don't see these very often in terms of Texas Tech playing on Thursday night. Funny enough, the last time that they did, well, they beat TCU, and that's the last time they beat TCU. It was on a Thursday night. So maybe there's some good energy going for the Red Raiders on that front, but it'll be Thursday night kickoff at 6 p.m. Central Time over on FS1. Now, looking at the history for this matchup, this is the 66th all-time meeting between the two in-state rivals, and the Red Raiders actually lead it 32-30 with 3 ties. Now, the Horned Frogs have a 4-game winning streak, and as I mentioned, the last time Texas Tech won against the Horned Frogs was back in 2018 on Thursday night at Jones AT&T. So there you go. Some other things you need to know about the TCU Horned Frogs going into this matchup if you're a Texas Tech fan. TCU, they lead the Big 12 in sacks as a team with 20 on the year. There's not that one guy, right, that really stands out per se. This is a team effort, and that's something that's maybe potentially going to cause some issues for Texas Tech and that offensive line as they shift a couple of guys around. But also, you look at this, the Horned Frogs rank 5th in the conference when it comes to points allowed per game with 23. So looking at the Texas Tech offense, it's good to see that Behren Morton will be back as we transition into the injury front for the Red Raiders. Joey McGuire was adamant that Behren Morton will be the starting quarterback for the Red Raiders in this one. He's been battling some injuries, whether that's with his right throwing shoulder in the AC joint or the back injury as well. It sounds like he will be good to go, but you got to wonder, are there going to be some lingering effects for QB1 for the Red Raiders? It's interesting is, again, Texas Tech is the only team in the country, the only one that has started 3 different quarterbacks in 2 consecutive years. Year 1 of Joey McGuire and this year. They're the only team in the FBS that has done that. So it's good to have their main guy back in Behren Morton, right? And speaking of their main guy on defense, at least according to Joey McGuire, is Jacob Rodriguez. Remember, he got hurt in week 1 up in Laramie, Wyoming with an ankle injury. He's been battling back to try and get back into the lineup, and Joey McGuire said that he expects Jacob Rodriguez, the focal point of the Texas Tech defense, again, if you listen to Joey McGuire, the best player on the defense, right, will be back for the Red Raiders against TCU. I should say is expected back against TCU. That's going to be a monumental addition for the Texas Tech defense that has actually played pretty damn well, all things considered, with how much the offense has put them in bad positions. Again, 8 total turnovers for the Red Raiders these past 2 dreadful weeks. All right, let's look at some of the players of the game, right? And again, if you haven't already, leave your score prediction down below for TCU at Texas Tech. And for the Texas Tech side, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory who we're watching in this one, right? We're watching Behren Morton. And the reason being is this. Are they going to let Behren air it out, right? Is this going to be the ground and pound game against TCU? And we're going to talk about their running back in just a second on the Horned Frogs side. But are there also lingering effects of these injuries for Behren Morton coming into this? Again, he's had a couple weeks off. You had the bye week. He didn't play at BYU, right? Is he okay and back to 100% or as close as you can be at this point in the season, right? And what does he look like after that first hit? Does that back flare up again? That's something that I'm watching for in this one. I'm also watching Taj Brooks. Listen, I've been the biggest advocate for giving Taj Brooks as many carries as possible because, again, he is the biggest threat offensively that Texas Tech has when defenses look at this squad, right? You also have to wonder this. He's never had a workload like this, right? We're talking about a guy that's top 5 in carries in the country, okay? Does the workload start to catch up to him a little bit? Does he get those heavy legs? And how much does that impact his efficiency, right? Again, 5 yards per carry on the year, 5.1 to be exact. Do you see a little bit more of Cameron Valdez in this game? I hope so. And I talked about it, that what I want to see from Texas Tech moving forward, I would love to see some 22 personnel with both Taj Brooks and Cameron Valdez on the field. But you have to wonder, does the workload start to catch up to Taj Brooks? I don't know if it's going to happen this week, but don't be surprised if there's some effects from that. I still think he's one of the best running backs in the Big 12 and a guy you have to lean on if you're the Red Raiders. Speaking of a guy you have to lean on, we talked about him a little earlier. It's Jacob Rodriguez. I want to see what he looks like and how much of an effect he has on this defense that, again, they haven't been great by any stretch of the imagination, right? But they've been pretty damn good, right? And that's something that really is going to impact Texas Tech, getting this guy back and really inserting him into a place in the defense that make more guys more comfortable, right? You put a guy out there like Josiah Pierre potentially. You got Ben Roberts. Less pressure now that you've got your main linebacker out there in Jacob Rodriguez. All right. Let's look at TCU. They won't have Chandler Morris in this one. It'll actually be starting quarterback Josh Hoover, the redshirt freshman. He likes to sling it, man. He can sling it for sure. Nearly threw for 500 yards against BYU. And he's getting more comfortable as a starter for TCU with Chandler Morris out, at least likely out, I should say, with an MCL injury. Now, the guy you need to know on the offense for TCU is they spread it around when it comes to the wide receivers. But when it comes to their running back, it's much like Texas Tech. They have one lead guy, and it's Amani Bailey, the running back, number 9. He's the 4th leading rusher in the Big 12 as it stands going into Thursday night. A dynamic rusher that really can get to all 3 levels, right? He's good in between the tackles. He can go through the ABC gap. He can bounce out wide, and he can make a guy miss and get to that 2nd, 3rd level of the opposing defense. So he's definitely a guy that I am looking out for. Now, on the defensive side, you got to look at Nnamdi, right? Nnamdi Obi-Asor, for those that want to pronounce it right. Nnamdi Obi-Asor. He's the linebacker. He actually transferred in from a community college, Iowa Western, and he's their leading tackler now at the linebacker position for Sonny Dykes' defense, right? This is a guy that you got to know where he is at all times. He leads the team in tackles and also is tied for sacks. And I mentioned it earlier in the video. TCU leads the Big 12 in sacks with 20 as a team. It's all spread out, but Nnamdi is a guy you got to know where he is at all times. He can drop back into coverage. He can go down and lay the wood in the run game. He can create havoc in rushing the passer. He's one of those guys where you have to know where he's at all times if you're the Texas Tech offensive line. And Behren Morton and Zach Kitley. I mean, he is one of those true impact guys, and it's really cool to see from a community college transfer. You don't see those guys make an impact right away. Nnamdi has definitely done that. All right, the must-watch matchup for me in this one, okay, it's actually the Texas Tech defensive line against the Texas Tech offensive line. And hear me out. Can the Red Raiders make Hoover uncomfortable, right? We're talking about a red shirt freshman quarterback making only his 2nd start on the road. Okay, the Tech defense has not really been put in the greatest spots by the offense. Hopefully that improves with Behren Morton back at the QB1 spot. You look at what they've done the last couple of games in terms of points allowed off of turnovers. It's been 27. Okay, for reference, they gave up 17 in the 6 games prior. Now, to be fair, Texas Tech has turned the ball over 8 times, right? So the defense, those numbers are skewed a little bit. But if you look at what they've done a pretty solid job. They held BYU actually to 20 points when you look at it, if you take away that turnover where BYU recovered the fumble in the end zone. But I think for me, I'm looking at this in the sense of, hey, can you make Hoover uncomfortable because you know you're going to focus on Bailey in the run game, but can you get some pressure on Hoover to make him make young redshirt freshman mistakes at home under the lights? That's what's going to be big for me in this one. So that's the matchup I'm watching. Now, as for the odds and the spread in this one, we've got Texas Tech right now as 3-point favorites at home. So really, you think about it, it's really a pick 'em if you go by the law that each home team gets 3 points. So If you go by that law, there you go. The total over-under is set at 59, not and a half, 59 straight up. And in this one, some people aren't going to like it, but I'm going to pick Texas Tech in this one, 33-31. And the reason being is simply put in this way. If not now, then when? Like, I get the last 2 weeks have been awful, right? The offense has just been awful in terms of turning the ball over. You obviously had Jake Strong in there, but Behren Morton is back at QB1. You get a boost on your defense with Rodriguez and a defense that's already played really solid, in my opinion, right? Can they get multiple turnovers this week? That's going to be the big thing, and that's why the matchup to watch for me is the Tech D-line against the TCU offensive line, because if you can get pressure on Hoover, he will throw picks. That's just how it's going to work, right? So if you can get those guys into those situations where he feels like he has to throw the football, I think you can turn it over and really, really impact things if you're Texas Tech. So again, if not now, then when? I guess UCF, but if they don't win this game, they have zero chance at making a bowl game. I mean, zero. It's done. This is a must-win game for the Red Raiders. Don't get it twisted whatsoever. Again, leave me your score prediction down on the pinned comment down below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on not only Texas Tech football all year long, but year one of Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders is about to tip off. They actually beat Texas A&M last night in Denton in a scrimmage, albeit exhibition. Still cool to see Texas Tech beat a top 15 team. Even in that, both teams were taking it very seriously. So if you want to stay in the know on both Texas Tech football and men's basketball all year long, be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button to join the most interactive Texas Tech community here on YouTube in the Back to 12 podcast channel.